look, it's Annie Frey.
So beat the drum with me.
At Annie Frey Show.
I'm not married to
Oh, look, it's Annie Frey. Hi, Annie Frey.
Good morning.
We talked a little bit about this on Saturday, about all the different wheels in the Republican Party that have to ultimately come together. But
Yeah.
listen, it's also not surprising in a situation like this. You do have such a diversity of thought. You do have people who are having to get used to a new kind of president, and you have a president having to get used to an old kind of political structure. So you're going to have these battles.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's going to be important in the next few weeks here. People are all trying to stake their territory, stand their ground on their belief. Everyone is going to have to give a little, and maybe it's not necessarily on policy, but maybe it's on more communication or trying to figure out the messaging of what they're trying to get out, figuring out how to present it to the American people so everybody feels like they have a little bit of buy-in. But we can't get through the next 6 months of this administration, let alone 4 years of this administration, if we don't get on the same page, or at least in the same book.
Yeah, well,
so we can get something done.
Yeah, and I think ultimately, after all this, I think the requirement is more that people in the Freedom Caucus and also the Ryans of the world have to actually also come to the table. They also have to actually express some cooperation, because it's not all about them either.
Yeah, and it's important to remember that the people who, like a Paul Ryan is going to be fine in his seat for probably a very long time if he wants to be, but it's very correlative to Illinois when you have somebody who represents Chicago, and the people in Chicago love Mike Madigan for what Mike Madigan does for Chicago. Well, down here in Southern Illinois, I don't really appreciate his policies and thoughts on everything as they are overarching for the entire state. You have a Paul Ryan in Wisconsin who's representing those people in Wisconsin, or the Freedom Caucus people as well. You're representing your people, but you do have to come together and understand that you can't run the entire country exactly the way your district would. So you do have to come to the table and to get anything done, because that's what's good for the people.
And President Trump isn't always right, and he was wrong in supporting this bill. I think he's also wrong in starting a war with the Freedom Caucus. But at the same time, I think there are other people like Ben Sass and Justin Amash who might as well, as far as I'm concerned, just go away, because they're just a bunch of trolls and never Trump trolls. And there's a happy medium here. I realize Trump, it's not a matter of it's not like you shouldn't be able to take the approach that he can do no wrong, but you also shouldn't take the approach that he can do no right. And that's the people like Amash and Sass, and they can go to hell as far as I'm concerned.
Well, there's so much that is just, in my opinion, it's for the TV camera. And you have, for Ben Sass, this is an opportunity for him to really carve out a place and define himself as a person, as a politician, where he is saying, especially to the people who he's representing, this is what I stand for. So that will go a long way in getting you reelected in your own district. But at the end of the day, you still have to be able to work with the people who are leading this country in order to get stuff done. Because if you don't get anything done, if you don't compromise, if everything that Donald Trump does is wrong, how are you going to go back to your people and say, "Hey, look what I've done for you"?
I can carve out a place for Ben Sass.
Here we go. Is this a regular feature on my side? I think so. I love it.
Yeah, I carved a little place out for him. So, speaking of doing no right, how about President Trump in front of a bunch of women? He invites all these women to the White House, and it's kind of a, support business, support women, that kind of thing, whatever. And he decides that he's going to say this, and then he gets trolled. Check this out.
We've had leaders like Susan B. Anthony. Have you heard of Susan B. Anthony? I'm shocked that you've heard of her.
So here's the thing. Two things are going on here. One is, it sounds to me, by his tone of voice, that actually he knows darn well they all have heard of Susan B. Anthony, and that he's being facetious. Mm-hmm. He's being, oh yeah, sure, of course. But now he's being also trolled by a bunch of people on Twitter for apparently being condescending, because of course they know. I asked Pippi and Denise if they knew who Susan B. Anthony was, and they said, well, we know she's on the money, and Denise said, I know she's part of the suffrage, but other than that, very few people actually do know about Susan B. Anthony. How about you?
She's a pioneer for women's rights. People were putting their "I voted" stickers on
her gravestone.
On her gravestone.
Right.
And she's somebody that women do champion, but like many other things, she's an icon for women's rights. She worked really hard to equalize, women in society, and then after that, it's like, I just know that I'm a woman and I support Susan B. Anthony for helping me get where I am. But the details, people don't know the details.
When you were in school, though, like I remember being in school, and for instance, Susan B. Anthony was an integral part of the Underground Railroad. Her name was never mentioned in school when they talked about the Underground Railroad. It was always Harriet Tubman. And believe me, we learned a lot about the suffragette movement and all that kind of stuff. And her name never came up when I was in school. And I know you guys didn't really learn much about Susan B. Anthony in school, right?
I never did a report on Susan B. Anthony.
I mean, so it's not beyond the realm of comprehension that there are some people who don't know, but you could tell by the tone of his voice that he was really kind of kidding.
And let's not pretend that if all these people who would want to troll Donald Trump on this, give him a quiz. And we see it all the time on all those news media packages where you start asking people questions, they don't know the answers.
Yeah.
They just know the talking points.
Right, exactly. All right, when we come back, I got to hit you up on this one. Speaking of trolling, Vice President Pence severely trolled over the way he operates with women.